the city of Belvidere. This tornado caused a line of damage that you just saw up on the TV there. Most notably, the Apollo Theater, which had a concert going on, and the roof collapsed onto the people watching the concert. At 7:24, there was a tornado warning siren because we knew it was coming. This call happened at 7:47. Belvidere Fire Department is 2 blocks away. They responded immediately. Chief Shale will talk about the response. There were numerous buildings damaged, trees down, vehicles flipped, a lot of damage, and we have a myriad of people here who are going to explain the response and the consequences. So first up is Chief Shadle from Belvidere Fire.
Thank you, sir. Hi, my name is Sean Shadle, Chief of Belvidere Fire Department, SHAWNSCHADLE. As Director Zachert stated last night, we got called for a roof collapse. It was 2 blocks from one of our manned stations, and we had about a 2-minute response time. Upon arrival, it was immediately noted that there was a marquee down in front of the building and a roof collapse inside of the building. There was a show going on that night and upwards of over 200 people present in the building when the collapse occurred. Luckily, due to the response and all the first responders and the bystanders helping assist everybody out, I believe the conditions could have been much worse. We're very fortunate in certain situations. It is still a tragedy. There was 1 confirmed deceased, 2 with life-threatening severe injuries, 2 more with severe injuries, 18 with moderate injuries, and 5 with minor injuries transported by EMS personnel. There was 7 EMS agencies able to provide service last night. Many of those ambulances were making multiple trips. On the response, right away, EMS box card was pulled to the 2nd level to get the ambulances, and then the TRT box card was pulled to get the Mavis 8 technical rescue team to assist with the collapse and the final search. We were able to search the building primarily with first responders, and then the TRT team was able to come in and do a full search of the building. We have accounted for all the individuals. There have been no reports of anybody missing. There was 1 brief report of somebody unaccounted for, and that individual was located in a triage area of the hospital. So at this time, State Street is still closed. It's been secured by fencing. They're in the process of removing the debris from State Street, and they're also structural engineers. The 2 buildings, the Apollo and then the building across the street, have both been condemned due to the damage from the storm. I just want to thank all the first responders, all the agencies, all the chiefs, everybody that came out last night and did everything they could for all those people in need. So those local area from, like I said, 3 counties, thank you guys very much for your service. Our thoughts and prayers are definitely with the families of those injured. We pray they recover well, and we offer our condolences to the family members that are grieving today. Thank you.
Next up, we have Medical Director 1, MD1 we call him. This is a doctor that comes out to the field whenever we need him, and he's going to discuss the nature of injuries and the severity of injuries. So, Dr. Smetana.
Hi, my name is Dr. Matt Smetana. It's Smetana. I'm an emergency physician with Mercy Health, and like Director Zachert said, part of our MD1 emergency field response program. So first responders encountered a number of patients suffering blunt trauma last night. Most of the injuries, or the common injuries we saw, included a number of orthopedic injuries, orthopedic extremity injuries, head and neurologic trauma, as well as a number of soft tissue injuries. Immediate triage, sorting patients by their injury severity, occurred on scene, as well as immediate on-scene stabilization, as well as stabilization during transport to the hospital. A number of local hospitals received patients, and there were more than 40 patients more than 40 patients treated at local hospitals as well. There's a number of patients still admitted, some in critical and serious condition at the hospitals, but there's also been a number of patients who have been treated and released. Like Chief Shadle said, a very impressive response by our first responder and EMS community to limit the number of injuries and to treat those wounded on scene.
Matt, is that with one T or two T's?
Two T's.
All right, next we have the Mayor of Belvidere, Clint Morris.
Well, good morning. Clinton Morris, C-L-I-N-T-O-N, M-O-R-R-I-S, Mayor, City of Belvidere. Last night, we had a significant event here in the City of Belvidere. First of all, I want to say that my condolences go out to the individual who lost their life at the Apollo at that event, and all of those, his family members, all of those that were injured as well last night. I also want to make sure and mention that our first responders, as the chief had mentioned, we were roughly across the bridge, less than 2 blocks away, and their response was within minutes. If we have to endure a tragic event like this, it's probably the best circumstances we could have had, and I want to make sure and mention Chief Shadle and Chief Woody, our Belvidere Police Chief. Both of them, I did receive a call early after this event, and that's never good news. We always hope for the best. In this case, the best would have been no fatalities and no injuries, but that isn't what we have here this morning. I also want to thank Dr. Matt Smetana. I think it is important to note that whenever you are able to triage and you're able to treat on the scene of a tragic event, it certainly determines your outcome that you're going to have here. And in Belvidere, we had although it was tragic, it could have been much, much worse. So I'm grateful for that. I also want to thank, we have with us IEMA, Alicia Tate-Nadeau with us here to help us start to pick up the pieces here. I have, the governor had called me last evening and offered his support, anything that he could do for our community as we move forward. And so for our friends at the state, I'm grateful for that. We're going to, hopefully, we'll be able to put these pieces back together here very soon. I think we've made significant progress to be able to secure the site, make sure that we don't have any additional injuries or that the building is unsafe, and that's our main prerogative right now. So, thank you.
All right, next up we have the Director of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, Alicia Tate-Nadeau.
Thank you.
First of all, Alicia Tate-Nadeau, Tate-Nadeau. Let me express our grief and sorrow to the family that was lost last night and for the many that were injured. I would like to do a shout out again to the men that stand behind me. If it wasn't for their quick actions and the fact that they were planning for this storm and were prepared, things could have looked a lot different today. But because of that, we had lives that were saved. There was a very quick technical search and rescue that was done by the fire department and the surrounding area to be able to support. Today, primarily, the governor's mission to me is to be here to find out how we can be of best assistance to this community. We know this community is grieving, and we know that they need help. So our job is to be there when they're in help. I can tell you that the governor has already spoken to the FEMA administrator, Deanna Criswell, and I have spoken to the FEMA Region 5 administrator, Tom Seebeck. We'll continue to coordinate very closely to establish where there are shortfalls and what we need to mitigate at this time. But all resources are available to this community. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the briefing part. We'll take a few questions, but I'll preface that with a lot of the information is preliminary. So, any questions? Yes.
Can you tell us anything about the man who was killed? I know you may not release his name, but age or anything?
I could tell he was a 50-year-old male. That's probably all I can say. Yes.
Belvidere resident?
That I don't know.
There's a lot of people who were there last night who told me that the crowd helped to remove the debris. Could you talk about that? I mean, is that indeed true, and did they really save people?
Yes, it is true. They acted quickly to remove debris from people because people were trapped under debris. They moved what they could, but then they lingered in the building that was unsafe, and we had to marshal them out when we got there. So yes, there was a concerted effort by a lot of concert goers, bystanders, to help each other, and that did help us a lot.
Did the roof collapse because the tall brick wall behind the theater fell on top of it, or was it ripped off?
We're not sure.
Okay.
We're doing some drone footage here shortly, and we'll have a better idea of that later today.
I do have to ask the hard question. It was stated that at 7:24 there was the tornado warning siren, and it was at 7:47 when the call came in. Were people moved away into a safer area, hallways, basements, places that we're told to go when there's a tornado warning, or did everybody stay and enjoy the show?
That's unknown to us. All we know is the roof collapsed and we went there. Sorry.
So is it possible that the siren's going off, but maybe because of the music, nobody in there heard the sirens?
It's possible. I can tell you there are many sirens in downtown Belvidere. It is very loud. And I can also say that band, I think, was pretty loud as well. So,
You mentioned 40 injuries. Did some of those people show up at the hospital on their own?
yes, there were some who self-transported. We had 28 ambulance trips. Not 28 ambulances, because some of them made 6 or 7 trips. So we transported 28 people via ambulance.
I was told that the event happened in between bands and that the venue basically told the crowd we're going to take a half-hour break because of the storm. Is that correct?
I don't know. Sorry.
You did say that it was condemned, or, I'm sorry, Chief, you did say that the building's condemned. So does that mean that they plan to start tearing it down immediately?
No, the Apollo is a historic site. I believe it was built in 1921. It's been a centerpiece of Belvidere. It's something we're proud of here. The first thing we're going to do is have the structural engineers come and see. You know, number one, obviously, we got to make sure it's safe. We can't have any future collapse that harm anybody or harm any workers working on the building. So they're going to be there and make the assessment today to see if it can be salvageable or if it can't be salvageable. So hopefully it is. We're also, since it's a historic building, going to be following all avenues to look for resources. The building owner is very devastated for those that got injured there. She's very, that is her absolute primary concern, but this is also very difficult for her, on top of all the injuries, to have her building be potentially torn down. I hope the best for her and for the Apollo. We're going to meet with structural engineers and get their information and then make that determination. The other building across the street, it is currently condemned until we can get some structural engineers in there. it's not near as damaged as the Apollo. Had a large parapet wall, heavy fall. It's still resting on the roof. We're going to address that one as well.
Was that building like inspected annually or every so often? Was there any violations in the past?
So we do. I mean, we have a Brycer compliance engine that works online to make sure that they report their sprinkler tests, alarm tests, and that they're doing that. And I know we have worked with Maria to make sure everything was compliant. I didn't look up before this morning to check on the status. I'll be honest about that. But that is something that we have in place to make sure. Now, our fire inspectors are not structural engineers, so that's not what they're looking. They're making sure their fire systems are. So as far as structural engineering, I wouldn't have any information on that.
And you guys were showing us the line of the storm, and obviously we've heard that and we see that there's damage widespread throughout all of Belvidere. How were you guys managing the response at the Apollo along with other emergency calls that were possibly coming in during the massive storm?
Yeah, we had many responses. We had the Stellantis plant had 2 air handlers ripped off the roof with gas leaks. We had Parkside Manor had probably 10 trees on buildings at the same time. District 3 had a car that a tree fell on it with an occupant in it. One of the power lines from the Apollo was lighting a garage on fire in the back. There was such an amazing response from all the area departments that we were able to assign engine crews to every incident that came into the city of Belvidere during that time.
And can you mention again, I don't know if you said the specific counties and agencies that came to help.
So I don't have the list in front of me, but there was many agencies, all the agencies in Boone County,
Okay.
Every single one of them, many agencies in Winnebago. The TRT, the Mavis Division 8, is Winnebago, Boone, and some of Ogle County. And then we also had a little help from east of us, McHenry County.
Was there any conversation before the storms were rolling through, because everyone was aware that these storms were moving in and there was a potential for a substantial impact? Was there any sort of discussion with the concert organizer about potentially postponing the concert to another date or just canceling it?
Yeah, you know, in a perfect world where we had many people to check with all a situation like that could be possible. I can speak on behalf of the fire department. We had extra staffing for that day. The county had activated the EOC and delivered all the deliverables from the Weather Service. And they also had extra staffing. I know District 2, which is another local agency, had extra staffing. Unfortunately, we don't have the manpower or notification systems to work through issues like that.
Does the concert venue have its own protocols as to when emergencies arise, what they're supposed to do?
So I can't speak on behalf of the Apollo, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Would the Apollo Theater be the technical organizer of the concert last night,
So,
or host?
I mean, they own the building, but oftentimes there's many different arrangements to host a show. So without seeing the agreement in front of me, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm sorry.
Right now, there's a car like directly across the street that has a lot of, it's basically buried under the debris. Is that debris also part of the roof?
Yeah, I believe that the tall part of the building, that is the roof off of the tall part of the building that was ripped off and struck by where the roof collapses and then ended up in the middle of the street there.
And the person that is deceased, were they found deceased inside of the venue, or do we know if they passed away at the hospital?
On scene. Where I'm not sure, but they were on scene and not removed from the scene.
Pronounced there.
Mm-hmm.
In the theater?
Right in that area. I don't know the exact location of where the individual was.
Okay.
But yeah, they weren't transported off a scene.
So you don't know if it was a concert goer or a staff person or?
That I honestly don't know. I know publicly we haven't released the name yet, but the information about why he or she was there, I don't know that.
That were torn off, what it means to the city of Belvidere.
Sure. So the Apollo Theater has as the chief had mentioned, had been here for over 100 years, and actually there was a quite a renovation done with the Apollo Theater not too many years ago, and it had sat vacant for a while, but they had had a buyer that had come in, and they had made renovations to it. But it is significant with our downtown history. I guess, when you think about what it means to the city, we would like to have that. That's a landmark. In a way, it's kind of like our brand as well, the city's brand. We're known for a few things, Stellantis, Chrysler being one of them, and the Apollo Theater has been a great facility for a number of years. So,
And murals.
and the murals. Okay.
All right, I'm going to follow up with just a little bit on the deceased. It appears that he was under the debris that fell, and some of the concert goers drug him out of there. We found him actually in a safer area, but he was already gone. There was absolutely nothing we could do. So you asked earlier about the concert goers helping. We think some of them actually dragged him out of harm's way.
But he was already,
Yeah.
so you believe he was there to show for the concert?
He had a concert T-shirt on,
Okay.
so. All right, if there are no other questions, thank you for coming. We'll release more information as it becomes available. And our cleanup starts now, and it's going to be weeks, maybe longer.